Welcome to Foodie Friday. Today we are going to make Piroshki filling. Now this is a really yummy dish that I started making, I don't know, a few years ago. My son was, and still kind of is, into anything Russian. Something about airsoft. Anyway, he found this recipe. Well, not this particular recipe, but he saw Piroshkis at some point and asked if we could make them. Now, a Piroshki is a meat hand pie, and everything we tried for the outer layer of the pie part, it just was problematic. And mainly because I'm gluten-free. So I can't really help you with how to make that. We just actually make it and eat it as Piroshki filling. The first time we made this, we were actually going to try making the hand pies, but the filling was gone before we got the pie part made because it was just so good. And so this is how we eat this now, just without the outer pie part, which I'm sure makes it a quicker meal to prepare, and it's still super yummy. So I am starting with a medium-sized onion and just finely chopped. I'm guessing that they specified finely chopped because, well, most people are putting this in some sort of dough, and you don't want big pieces to poke holes in it. Same thing with the cabbage. And I'm sure I'm not doing quite the right amounts, but it's what I had wound up landing on thinking was about accurate for what we originally made this as. Probably about a half a cup of onion and about 2 cups of cabbage. I'm probably a bit high on both of those this time, and it still tastes good. So kind of aim for what you have on hand or what tastes good to you, and go from there. So I am doing this in the Instant Pot, and I've just got that on Sauté. My Sauté feature goes for 10 minutes automatically. So when you hear the beeps, that's why it's shutting off. So I am just letting the onions cook a little bit, and then I will be adding a pound of ground beef. Feel free to use whatever meat you tolerate well, and you can also cook that meat from frozen. It happened to be thawed out and needed used, so that's what's happening here. For this recipe, I probably wouldn't pressure cook the meat in addition to everything else, but I suppose you totally could. I would just cover the pan with a lid, let it the steam cook the top layer, and I would just continually be scraping off the outer edge until it was cooked through. That's how I typically cook my meat from frozen if I don't want to pressure cook it. And I don't often pressure cook meat because, well, my kids just don't like the texture because it stays in whatever form you leave it in. So it doesn't get broken up as much as when you are just browning ground meat on the stove. So I am letting the meat cook in with those onions, and I am going to get the seasonings in here. We are using 3/4 teaspoon of Pink Himalayan salt, 1/4 teaspoon of ground pepper, 1 tablespoon dried dill weed, 1 teaspoon of garlic. In this recipe that I had worked out the other day as being approximately what we had originally started with, was actually it calls for 1.5 cups of beef stock, and I just don't have beef stock in the house right now, so I did go ahead and use water. Adding stock, assuming you tolerate it well, we'll just add another little bit of a layer of flavor. I did add just shy of 1.5 cups of water. I'm not sure why. I totally could have done 1.5 cups of water. I was concerned with how much water would be released from the cabbage, and it wasn't really all that much. So I'm just like adding these things as I go. You're seeing them flash across the screen. Everything is, of course, to taste, and you are welcome to adjust accordingly. Now, that is one thing. Since I lost the original recipe, we are still trying to find the correct amount of seasonings for this, but I think this is pretty accurate. In most recipes, you will see that the dill runs the gamut anywhere from 1 teaspoon to almost 2 tablespoons. So definitely do it to taste. Now, I also probably could have put the rice in last. I don't know. I always put the rice in first and kind of let it get coated in the oils and stuff in the pan. So that's what I did here. But it was sticking to the sides of the pan from the steam and everything and was just a pain. So do whatever is easiest. I don't know that the order this stuff goes in makes any difference whatsoever. It's really just a very simple kind of dump and go type recipe. Obviously, I did chop stuff up, but if you are wanting to speed this up and can tolerate the like bagged vegetables, a coleslaw mix would work really well in here for the cabbage. And then you would just need to cut up an onion. Everything was sticking to everything. Like I mentioned before, definitely use 1.5 cups of liquid, but it really wasn't bad, and it didn't stick too bad with the 1 cup. I normally do 1-to-1 on the rice, and so that's kind of what I was thinking, and I should have added a little bit more. Do remember, if you're trying to time this meal, that it does take a little bit of time for the Instant Pot to come up to pressure. So even though we're only cooking it for 4 minutes on high, you do actually need to plan on a little bit more time. All in all, from start to finish, this probably took about 25 minutes to make. So very easy, and I'll see you guys next week.
Supper's ready.